to this Enable Ireland video on teaching children with hemiplegia and ambulant cerebral palsy how to ride a bike. For most children, cycling is a fun and important activity that is associated with freedom and independence. For children with ambulant cerebral palsy, learning to ride a bike can be more challenging. Research in Australia has shown that a lower proportion of children with ambulant cerebral palsy can ride compared to typically developing peers, and those that could learned later. Cycling has a broad range of benefits in line with the F words of childhood disability. Fitness. Cardiovascular fitness, coordination and balance can all improve with cycling, as well as it being part of a weight management program. For children with cerebral palsy, it can be advantageous to have an exercise option which is low impact and reduced weight bearing. Alongside the physical health benefits of this exercise, there are numerous mental health benefits, such as a sense of empowerment and achievement. Family. Cycling can be an activity which allows all the family to enjoy time together, either just in a local park or along some of Ireland's spectacular greenways. Friends. Very importantly, it's an activity which children can do with their friends. Function. It can also be a really useful form of transport. How children cycle isn't as important as the fact that they are cycling. Future. Cycling can be a lifelong activity. Achieving cycling as a child can develop their independence. Fun. Perhaps most importantly, it's great fun. As physiotherapists, we know how crucial exercise is for children with cerebral palsy and how important it is to provide it in a fun, child and family-centred way. Children often don't see it as physio or exercise, but simply as an enjoyable activity. So, what do we mean by ambulant cerebral palsy? The gross motor skills of children with cerebral palsy can be categorised into 5 different levels using the Gross Motor Function Classification System developed by CanChild in Canada. We'll be focusing predominantly on children who are classified as GMFCS level 1 or 2, meaning that they generally walk shorter distances without the need of a mobility aid. When looking at cycling across the GMFCS levels, we'll be focusing mainly on the use of mainstream bikes, and we'll discuss some adaptations of these bikes which may be required for some people. Next, we need to consider the distribution. Knowing the distribution of affected areas in the child is really important when teaching bike skills, as different teaching skills need to be applied when assisting a child with right hemiplegia compared to left. As both one lower and one upper limb will be involved for these children, considerations need to be given as to how they will manage holding onto the handlebars and operating the brakes. Children with diplegia will have both of their lower limbs affected, but perhaps manage mainstream handlebars and brakes without difficulty. These children often have one lower limb more affected than the other, and it is important for the trainer to know which side is stronger. Some children with quadriplegia can learn to independently cycle, but it very much depends on the severity, and often multiple adaptations are required. A question I'm very commonly asked is whether children should learn to cycle with stabilisers on their bike first. Generally, if the child falls under the classification of GMFCS level 1, then I promote the balance bike method of teaching. However, some children, especially those who are GMFCS level 2, can find the process of learning very challenging. And if this method is proving to be a battle, then there's nothing wrong in adding the stabilisers, as the child can still enjoy many of the benefits of cycling, and perhaps will try again to remove the stabilisers as they grow more. I tend to discourage the method many of us learned to ride a bike by one of our parents holding onto us on the bike without stabilisers, running behind us and then eventually letting go. This method might work for some, but it's generally going to take a little longer and considerably more falls. Nowadays, most children learn to cycle via the balance bike method, starting off on a 10 or 12-inch balance bike and progressing to a 14-inch bike without stabilisers once they are tall enough and have developed their sense of balance on a bike. There are also 14-inch specific balance bikes, and some bikes which start as balance bikes and grow with the child, and when ready, the pedal kit can be placed on the same bike. By 16-inch bike sizes, generally a mainstream bike will need to be converted into a balance bike. A more detailed tutorial going through the steps of the balance bike method can be found here. Next, we need to consider the bike itself, as getting the right bike can sometimes be the key to success. When looking for a bike, consider the weight of it. Some mainstream bikes can come with a multitude of accessories and distractions, which can make the process more challenging. Also consider the style of the bike and the handlebar type. BMX-style bike handlebars can often sit closer to the child, and some handlebars come with the option to adjust how close you want the handlebars. This can be very useful for children with hemiplegia, who may not easily have the same reach span on their affected side as their peers. If your child is very nervous of bikes and not yet willing to try sitting on one, it can be useful to sometimes bring the bike with a basket or a carrier to the park with you. As you're pushing the bike along, encourage your child to collect leaves, etc., and put them into the carrier so that they can start engaging with their bike in a positive way before sitting on it when they're ready. Bikes come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and getting the right bike size and design can make a huge difference. When using it as a balance bike, the rider should have both feet comfortably on the ground with mid-range knee bend. The size of the children's bike is measured by their tyre size and written on the tyre wall. The seat height is crucial to success. Too high and the rider will feel unsafe and may struggle to gain sufficient power for gliding. Too low and we make it very hard work for their legs. Bikes aren't the same right to left, with the obvious difference that the chain and chain guard sit on the right. If the bike has gears, these may be on both handlebars or just one side, depending on the style of the bike. Some bikes also come with accessories which are one-sided, such as a kickstand or a bell. It can be useful to consider the symmetry of the bike itself and where to place accessories for children who have one side stronger than the other. Brakes are also an important consideration, which we'll discuss in more detail later. We'll be looking at brakes and other adaptations for mainstream bikes in part 2, which also takes us step by step through the stages of learning to ride a bike with ambulant cerebral palsy.